The icy winter winds of 1874 bring absolute financial devastation across the Atlantic Ocean. For a fragile woman already battling severe illness, this sudden crisis threatens her entire future. Disasters multiply as a catastrophic printshop fire completely incinerates her latest completed manuscript. Every single page of her diligent work vanishes into smoke, leaving behind nothing but ruins. Though a failing body forces her to carefully ration every ounce of physical energy, she does not despair. She looks directly at the heartbreaking wreckage and joyfully smiles. Instead of weeping over her ruined prospects and burned manuscripts, she speaks words of profound triumph.
Not a sigh, but a song.
The standard 19th century Christian narrative often spotlights healthy, mobile leaders traveling across the globe. Yet, profound Victorian theological legacies also emerged directly from the quiet isolation of lonely sick rooms. Foremost among these hidden figures is the brilliant poet who lived for 42 years. Her inspiring life embodied a striking paradox between a staggering intellect and an immensely weak body. Known worldwide as the consecration poet, her enduring legacy extends far beyond her famous hymns. Severe physical limitations never stifled her productivity. Instead, they beautifully refined her spiritual output. Her intense bodily afflictions completely transformed external weakness into a wealth of transcendent faith. She proved conclusively to the world that profound, lasting spiritual devotion can thrive inside deep isolation. The historical narrative of 19th century Christian devotion is frequently dominated by larger-than-life figures. These prominent men commanded massive pulpits or traversed vast, untamed continents to establish global missions. Yet, some of the most enduring theological contributions of the Victorian era emerged not from spaces of health. Instead, they came directly from the quiet, isolated confines of the sick room. Foremost among these hidden, resilient voices is a brilliant woman whose earthly existence was entirely defined by a profound paradox. She possessed an incredible mind trapped inside a broken vessel. Blessed with a staggering, multifaceted intellect and immense artistic genius, she spent her brief 42 years operating within a weak body that ultimately served as a restrictive physical prison. She was a master of modern languages, a gifted pianist, and an insightful theologian. Yet, chronic, debilitating illness routinely stripped away her ability to engage with the bustling outside world. To fully comprehend her lasting legacy as the consecration poet, one must look beyond a simple catalog of hymns. It is necessary to examine her extraordinary creative spark. The foundational premise of her life rests on a striking reality. Her severe physical limitations did not stifle her productivity. Rather, they acted as the precise refining mechanism. The sick room was never a place of stagnant despair for her. Instead, it became a laboratory of deep spiritual processing, altering her trajectory and offering insight into a mystery. Through this unique environment of bodily affliction, we gain insight into a profound truth. We see the systematic means by which external weakness transforms into internal, transcendent spiritual wealth. Her intense experience forced her to live out the absolute surrender she penned in her poetry. Cut off from active service, she leaned into a ministry of deep devotion. She proved to her generation that profound faith does not require a massive stage to alter the spiritual landscape. Her suffering beautifully stripped away everything that was merely superficial. She left behind a pure theology of absolute dependence that continues to comfort readers generations later. Her enduring spiritual echoes were ultimately forged in the quietest, darkest valleys. The heartbreaking death of her mother in 1848 triggers a prolonged season of deep inner turmoil. Though acutely aware of spiritual vulnerability, she lacks any assurance of personal salvation. An agonizing struggle lasts over 3 years as convicting grace weighs heavily on her. A solemn sermon on judgment haunts her thoughts, magnifying the painful distance she feels. Resolution finally comes in 1851 while away at school, beautifully aided by a friend's clear testimony and the incredibly gentle counsel of her future stepmother, Miss Caroline Cook. Cook brilliantly guides young Frances to look entirely away from her fluctuating feelings. By relying strictly on Christ, the immense, agonizing burden of spiritual doubt is finally lifted forever. This foundational conversion finds its public expression during her solemn Anglican confirmation ceremony. Kneeling devoutly near the altar rails, a profound realization of divine ownership suddenly bursts upon her. She offers a heartfelt prayer of absolute surrender, declaring she cannot walk without him. She steps forward with almighty help, transcending mere ecclesiastical routine through her profound faith. Her intense focus on belonging to God firmly establishes a lasting theology of divine ownership. This total capitulation would later completely saturate her famous, globally recognized Victorian hymnody. The practical application of her sacred vow leads directly to personal choices that diverge sharply from Victorian norms. Despite attracting multiple suitors, she deliberately declines all marriage proposals. She executes a similar renunciation regarding her professional trajectory. Possessing a brilliant soprano voice and complete mastery of the piano, a lucrative public concert career is within reach. Yet she deliberately turns her back on worldly fame and wealth. Subordinating her artistic talents entirely to sacred use, she transforms potential secular ambition into a beautiful sacrifice. Despite her exceptional musical genius and intense desire to play, Frances Ridley Havergal's trembling hands fail her, highlighting her systemic weakness. Her glittering intellect and artistic talent are perpetually checked by intense physical suffering. Though shielded from working-class labor, no domestic comfort can insulate her from catastrophic physical collapses. Just as she prepares for international travel or high-energy ministries, her health completely fails. This sudden collapse isolates her in pain-filled rooms for months at a time. She continuously expends physical strength her fragile body does not actually possess. This relentless drive to serve her Savior ultimately accelerates her tragic, untimely demise at age 42. By her late 30s, she is a near-total invalid. Stripped entirely of public ministries like parish visitation and active teaching, she does not lapse into passive, bitter despair. Instead, she systematically restructures her remaining energy around an organized, strategic prayer ministry. Using a detailed prayer list to combat cognitive fatigue, she daily intercedes for global missionaries. She regularly prays for local ministries, her beloved nephews and nieces, and former Bible class students. Her severe isolation fuels an even deeper, more passionate spiritual appetite for God. She studies biblical texts in their original languages and memorizes massive portions of Scripture. The sick room, threatening to become a tomb for her talents, is beautifully refashioned. Her lonely bedroom is ultimately transformed into a dynamic powerhouse of deep theological reflection and global intercession. Her profound legacy continues to echo loudly across the entire world. The turning point, December 2nd, 1873. In late 1873, she experiences a definitive spiritual breakthrough known as the crisis of the exchanged life. She surrenders her will entirely to Christ for ongoing daily sanctification. This critical pivot beautifully restructures her psychological approach to enduring chronic pain. It completely protects her mind from bitterness, supercharging her remaining creative energies for her most significant devotional work. Her new spiritual posture is tested immediately by harsh financial reality. Relying heavily on writing for both ministry and personal income, she eagerly awaits overdue royalties from her American publisher. Instead, a bleak letter arrives announcing the publisher's absolute bankruptcy due to a massive financial crash. This exclusive agreement completely blocks her vital access to the American market. Before recovering financially, a second major disaster strikes her career. A devastating fire at her printer's establishment completely destroys the sole copy of her brand new completed manuscript. For an invalid with limited physical stamina, losing an entire winter's labor without any memorandum is absolutely catastrophic. Recreating the book poses a daunting physical and mental challenge. Her remarkable response brilliantly highlights her radical spiritual resilience. Regarding her ruined American prospects, she cheerfully observes that saying, "Thy will be done," is no longer a painful sigh. She beautifully frames the entire tragedy as a song, viewing the destroyed manuscript as divine refinement. This deep piece transforms her isolated sick room into a sanctuary of radical consecration. The physical weaknesses confining her fragile body paradoxically freed her pen, eventually yielding 6 distinct volumes and over 65 timeless hymns. She viewed writing as an extension of prayer. She firmly insisted that she never wrote a single verse independently. She constantly asked God for every specific line and rhyme, framing art as stewardship rather than personal ambition. Composed just weeks after her devastating American publishing failure, this legendary text systematically dedicates every physical faculty and material resource entirely to the service of her sovereign God. Written amid severe physical pain and deep financial uncertainty, this masterpiece perfectly portrays a divine comfort completely undisturbed by external circumstances. It reflects her profound, unshakable faith. Other enduring works include a remarkably mature hymn written at the young age of 18. These theological treasures continue to resonate deeply, defining the 19th century deeper life movement. Her extensive work extended to a vast global correspondence, devotional tracts, leaflets, and popular books. She beautifully broke down complex theological concepts into accessible, practical daily reflections. Despite a growing international reputation, she retained an incredibly modest view of her talents. She was deeply moved when unexpectedly encountering her published work within the public sphere. She once expressed feeling completely overwhelmed hearing an entire congregation sing 3 of her hymns. This sweet experience deepened her lifelong gratitude for helping God's people worship. Frances Ridley Havergal embeds specific scriptural phrases into her handwritten stanzas, bypassing abstract academic speculation for direct devotional application. The 19th century hymnologist James Davidson approves her theological balance between absolute divine sovereignty and urgent grace. Scholar Samuel Willoughby Duffield highlights her emphasis on instantaneous conversion over ritualistic high church traditions. She adopts historic methods from Isaac Watts and the Wesley brothers, using congregational singing as a teaching tool. Built upon the 19th verse of Psalm 90, this hymn functions as a systematic theology for a new season exploring mercy, unyielding faithfulness, and sustaining grace. Written as an ascension hymn for young children, this work links Christ's historical ascension to his current exalted status. This hymn studies the paradox of continuous spiritual growth, demonstrating that true lasting spiritual peace is a dynamic reality. The 3rd verse of her hymn treats deep trials as reasons for genuine joy, showing how focusing on God brings peace. Frances Ridley Havergal was to Great Britain what Fanny Crosby was to the United States. Operating on opposite sides of the Atlantic Ocean, these iconic women shared remarkable biographical and spiritual parallels. Both navigated profound physical limitations, Crosby with total blindness and Havergal with chronic invalidism. Each experienced a youthful conversion followed later by a deeper life spiritual awakening in adulthood. Though health and geography prevented a face-to-face meeting, they maintained a warm correspondence. Havergal beautifully captured this bond, writing that they were linked by a cable of faith and song. Their hymnological contributions diverged significantly. Crosby wrote rhythmic, narrative-driven gospel songs that fueled American revivalism, while Havergal's songs functioned as a challenging call for established believers to enter absolute dedication. Illness did not suppress her vibrant love for creation. Whenever brief windows of health allowed, she eagerly escaped the confining sick room to explore Scotland, North Wales, and the scenic Gower Peninsula. Her love of adventure peaked in the Swiss Alps, where she bravely embraced hiking, mountain climbing, and skiing across dangerous terrain, once noting she narrowly escaped sudden, catastrophic death. She intentionally treated these magnificent journeys as active mission fields. She regularly distributed literature and eagerly shared her faith with fellow alpine travelers navigating the beautiful, high-altitude mountain passes. Throughout her struggles with chronic pain, she maintained a sharp wit and refused to become grim. She often used humor to soften her reputation for intense, solemn spiritual focus. Her unique path to becoming a deeply respected voice in church music initially met significant, harsh resistance from the Church of England's academic and clerical elite. However, these accessible qualities endeared her deeply to everyday churchgoers. Connecting with ordinary people facing daily struggles, she intentionally focused her creative energy directly on the public. Over time, her massive grassroots influence forced the institutional church to reconsider. She quickly became a central literary figure for the famous Keswick Convention's Deeper Life movement. In 1880, prominent publications highlighted how her incredible masterpiece successfully challenged Christians across various denominations to adopt significantly higher standards of true, personal spiritual devotion. Her lengthy battle with illness ended on June 3, 1879, in Swansea, Wales. Her fragile body succumbed to chronic deterioration at the young age of 42. Though her life was short, her beautiful hymns achieved global permanence. A historical study revealed her masterpiece was sung worldwide, securing her place as an enduring evangelical theologian. The life and legacy of this remarkable hymn writer offer a striking illustration of how severe physical limitations can be beautifully reframed into a powerful avenue for lasting spiritual influence. Within the context of church history, her biography serves as a critical transition point. Her narrative demonstrates that a fragile physical frame does not have to result in a diminished life. Because she was prevented from pursuing a conventional, high-energy public ministry that required constant travel, she focused her remaining energy on her writing. The boundaries freed her mind. Her hymns did not emerge from a life of ease, but from a persistent daily battle with pain. This reality gave her words a deep sense of enduring authenticity. Ultimately, her experience clearly shows that profound vulnerability can coexist with deep spiritual resilience. In the midst of physical trials, she discovered a source of true inner strength. Through her poetry and prose, she left behind a lasting record of how faith can endure through suffering, providing a voice that continues to encourage modern believers today. The paradox of Frances Ridley Havergal's life challenges our modern obsession with comfort, efficiency, and untethered independence. We frequently view our physical limitations, financial setbacks, and shattered plans as structural roadblocks to a meaningful life. Yet, her sickroom sanctuary proves that the boundaries of a broken vessel can become the exact parameters within which divine grace is magnified. When external losses strip away our illusions of control, we are finally forced to confront the true ownership of our existence. Are you treating your current physical or circumstantial limitations as a prison that halts your purpose, or as a crucible designed to refine your unique voice? If your primary ambitions were reduced to ashes tomorrow, would your response to the Sovereign King be a bitter sigh of defeat or a resilient song of absolute surrender? Do not miss our next installment as we continue navigating our series on theology born out of profound weakness. Next week, we turn our gaze from the Victorian sickroom of Great Britain to the rugged, grief-stricken valleys of 18th century Scotland. Join us for Thomas Boston, the heartbroken pastor of Ettrick, where we will examine how a shepherd plagued by chronic family tragedy, pastoral isolation, and deep personal sorrow forged some of the most comforting theological treatises in church history. Stay connected. If this deep dive into the triumphant pen of Frances Ridley Havergal encouraged your faith, ensure you never miss an episode. Subscribe to the Theology Today right now to stay updated on our 10-part series and join a global community dedicated to unpacking church history with uncompromising depth. Hit the notification bell so you are alerted the moment our next narrative drops.